parts of my job. So I'm happy to promote it, and I'm happy to promote it specifically to artists from South Jersey. So I'd like to kick things off with just a brief overview of the program and give you some context around it. So since 1970, the State Arts Council in New Jersey has celebrated artists in the state through this program, and it is administered by our partners at Mid-Atlantic Arts. They provide all of our administrative support, and in partnership together, we move the program forward. So the State Fellowship Program provides funding for individual artists residing in New Jersey to encourage and to help sustain their pursuit of artistic work. Competitive awards are granted to artists in 13 different arts disciplines through an independent peer panel review of the work samples submitted. The anonymous evaluation process is focused solely on artistic quality, and the awards may be used to help artists produce new work, advance their creative practices, or their careers. In recent years, the council approved a few changes to the program, which have increased the opportunity for artists to be funded. First, most importantly, they have gradually but exponentially approved increased funding for this program, which has enabled us to award more artists at higher award amounts. So for example, last year's awards, they ranged from $3,850 all the way up to the top tier of funding, which was $31,000. We have gone up to as high as 32. Secondly, a finalist tier of funding was added to 2 grant cycles ago. We added a finalist tier, and those awards are granted to artists whose work scores highly, but just beneath the threshold for receiving a fellowship. Finalists receive a small grant, and they can immediately return to the application process in the next cycle their discipline is offered. So there's no requirement for abstaining, as there is from those who receive fellowships. And finally, at the same time that we were doing this, the program shifted from a 3-year grant cycle to a 2-year cycle. So that means that artists can now apply for this opportunity more regularly. As a result of the State Arts Council's outreach strategies over the past decade, there has been a consistent increase in applications from culturally diverse artists working in a wide range of disciplines across the state. But a few years ago, the staff saw that these efforts were not as successful in increasing engagement from the 8 southern counties, you all, or in the rural northern county of Warren, all of which had historically low participation numbers. So in 2020, the council approved a temporary incentive to these 9 counties to encourage application numbers for the program in 2021. So the goal was to increase geographic representation from artists in these areas. And by following that data, we know that we are reaching this goal. So we're very pleased to see that. So given that over the course of the last 4 years, we have seen a steady incremental increase in both the application numbers and the award numbers from artists in these counties, the council has made the decision to eliminate the incentive. Since the 2021 application and award year for this program, we've seen a jump for South Jersey go from a total of 49 applications to a total of 167 total applications in the last cycle. We've also seen an increase in the number of South Jersey awardees go from 6 in 2021 to 29 in the last cycle. So we are super excited to see these increases, and we will hope that the trend continues even without the added incentive. And this opens up more opportunities for awarding more artists across the board, including South Jersey artists. So moving forward, we'll continue to do additional outreach in your area and in Warren County, and we'll continue to track the numbers because encouraging that upward trend is still a priority to us. So I hope that today's technical assistance gives you help with navigating your application and making it the best possible representation of your current artistic work that it can be. And know that we are here to provide more one-on-one assistance as well. Before I hand it off to my partner Jackie, is Steph here? No? Okay.
She's not.
So before I hand it off to you, Jackie, I just want to say thank you to you and extend my best wishes to Steph. I'd just like to thank them for their hard work on this program, because without their care and attention to it and their partnership with us, this fellowship would be very difficult for the council to put out to the world, to you. So that's it for me. I am available for questions at any time. If you want to give me a shout out, you can send me an email. I'll just throw that in the chat here. And I'll also put my phone number in here. You can call me at the office. If I don't answer, please leave me a message because it'll pop up in my email and I'll call you back. All right. Thanks, everybody. I'll pass it over to Jackie now. Thank you.
Thanks, Steph. Hello, everyone. Just to give a quick introduction, Jackie Domenus. My pronouns are they, them, she, her. I am the program director of fellowships at Mid-Atlantic Arts. I'll also just mention that I'm in Belmar, New Jersey, the one with W, so the South one. I saw someone put Deptford in the chat, so I'm literally right next to Deptford, and I also used to live in Turnersville, but someone put that in there as well. So my colleague Steph Reyes was also supposed to be here, but she had to end up taking the afternoon off. But you'll see her contact info here later on, as well as mine, because we both manage the New Jersey fellowships in partnership with the State Arts Council. So as Steph already mentioned, Mid-Atlantic Arts administers the whole application process, the submission, review, post-award on behalf of the State Arts Council through an ongoing partnership. And we're here today to briefly touch on some of the rules and instructions for the fellowship's application, and to also give you a quick demonstration of how to apply it and exactly what the application looks like once you're in there. And most importantly, at the end, we can answer hopefully any questions that you may have. The goal here really is sort of to demystify the application process, again, in hopes that we continue to see South Jersey, the number of South Jersey applications grow. I think the folks at the South Jersey Cultural Alliance sent out the rules and instructions beforehand in one of the emails. So if you had a chance to look at that, great. If not, we're going to take a brief look at it and walk you through it, and it's always available online as well. So I think we'll kind of just start with a quick overview, and we won't get into the exact criteria for every single category that's open, but I'll show you how to get to that part on the rules and instructions after we do a quick overview to start with. So first, a couple of these things Steph already sort of touched on, but just kind of reiterating, the individual artist fellowships are awarded based on work that applicants have already created. In the application and the program rules and instructions that we'll show you today, you'll notice that you'll be asked to submit examples of your work from the past 4 years. In order to be eligible for the program, you must be able to submit work that falls within the parameters of one of the categories that's offered during this current round, which we'll go over in just a second. The completed work samples that you submit in your application will be evaluated through a peer review panel process. And if you're recommended to receive a fellowship based on those evaluations, you'll receive a cash award that is almost entirely unrestricted. So essentially what this means is that you can use that funding for almost any purpose which helps support you in your work. So for example, let's say you apply sculpture and you are awarded, you could use that funding for sculpting supplies, or you could use it to help support a filmmaking project or interdisciplinary project. Or you could also use it to help cover your rent, your mortgage, childcare, so that you have more time to focus on artistic pursuits. Many people are familiar with project grants, where you submit a proposal and then you receive funding to execute a specific idea or concept. For the fellowships, however, you only need to submit eligible examples of your past work, even if you don't have a specific project in mind for the fellowship funding. And again, those who receive a fellowship have pretty much complete flexibility to use the funding in whatever way works best for them. So the individual artist fellowships are offered in a broad range of visual, literary, and performing arts categories. Different categories are offered each year, and as you'll see noted in the program rules and guidelines, or instructions rather, we run on a 2-year category rotation schedule. So this means that applicants have the opportunity to apply to the fellowships more regularly. So the categories for the 2025 award cycle are screen. So we'll have choreography, crafts, music composition, photography, poetry, playwriting / screenwriting, and sculpture. Only applications in these categories will be accepted for the 2025 fellowships. You may submit one application in a single category per year. So if your work doesn't fall under one of these categories, then we invite you to see the program rules and instructions for the full category rotation. Hopes that perhaps it will fit next year, and that hopefully you can apply in the future in a different category. The application deadline for the 2025 individual artist fellowships will be 5 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesday, July 16th. We do graciously ask you to plan ahead of that and try to contact us in advance of the deadline if you need assistance. You know, just we last year I think received around 700 eligible applications in total. So rather than waiting until Tuesday at 3 p.m. on the deadline date to ask a question, it's always better to try to get a hold of us sooner, so that we can help you out before it's in the heat of the scramble, if you will. In terms of how the fellows are selected, recipients are selected through a competitive evaluation process based on the work samples submitted. Fellowship applications are reviewed by independent panels of peer evaluators made up of artists and arts professionals with expertise in that specific discipline that they're reviewing. The recipients of the fellowships are decided solely on the artistic quality of the work samples that are submitted in the application. Also, just want to reiterate that applications are reviewed anonymously, so panelists will not have access to your information as they are reviewing the work. The anonymous review process helps ensure that panelists are not influenced by things like name recognition, previous accomplishments, education level, employment, or anything like that. There's no award quota per artistic discipline or style. The fellowships are awarded to those applicants who demonstrate the highest artistic quality regardless of discipline. So at the end of the evaluation process, the State Arts Council staff combines all of the application scores across every discipline offered that year and then creates a funding scenario that awards the top scoring applications. Again, the amount of the award is determined annually by the State Arts Council from funding provided through the New Jersey Hotel Motel tax. Fellowship awards in the past, as Steph mentioned, have ranged from $3,850 to $32,000. The only limitations in terms of the funding, fellowship funds, if you're awarded, is that they may not be used for travel out of the country, for study as a matriculated student in a graduate or undergraduate program, or to purchase permanent equipment, which is equipment with a resale value exceeding $350 or having a lifespan of over 3 years. In terms of general eligibility, to be considered eligible to apply for a fellowship, applicants must be permanent residents of the state of New Jersey. So you must be a current permanent New Jersey resident at the time of application and at the time of award, which will take place in March 2025. So this means if the applicant moves out of state after the application has been submitted, but prior to being awarded a grant, they're no longer considered eligible. And just a heads up, awarded fellows will be asked to supply 2 forms of verification with their name and home address if they're awarded. So could be driver's license, ID card, utility bill, pay stub, mortgage statement, etc. Applicants must be age 18 or older, and the applicant must be the artist whose original work is represented in the submitted work sample. There are some limitations about who may apply to the program. So the following individuals are not eligible to apply. So anyone who received a fellowship in any category in 2024, 23, 22, 21, or 20 are not eligible to apply for the current year. Applicants may not be matriculated students in a graduate, undergraduate, or high school program at the time of application or award. And collaborating New Jersey artists are not eligible to submit a joint application for collaborative work. So again, the applicant artist must have sole creative control over all the work that's submitted under their name. So in addition to meeting applicant eligibility, all work samples submitted for consideration must meet this sort of general set of eligibility criteria, regardless of which discipline you are applying in. And that's that all work samples must have been produced within the eligible time frame outlined in the rules and instructions. Work completed while the applicant was a matriculated student in a graduate, undergraduate, or high school program is not considered eligible. Works in progress or project proposals are not eligible for work samples. And just for the purpose of this program, complete, as it's listed in the rules and instructions, is considered to be the point at which the work is ready for public presentation. And again, as mentioned previously, to help ensure that applications are reviewed solely on artistic quality and not on previous accomplishments or identity of the artist, the application process is anonymous. So accordingly, applicants may not include identifying or biographical information in their work samples, in their work sample files, or anywhere on the work sample page of the application. So that's information such as your name, signature, professional affiliations, biographical information, anything in that sort of vein. I'm going to skip over these because they're pretty detailed in the rules and instructions. Just want to briefly mention, since this is becoming a more popular topic in the arts world and also the world in general, a note on AI. Works that are purely generated through AI are not eligible for submission, as the artist must have sole creative control over the conceptualization and implementation of the submitted work. Projects that utilize AI as a part of the generative process, but where the artist retains creative control of the finished work, is eligible. So if an AI-powered tool was used as part of the creative process, artists should disclose what tool was used and how in the technical information section of the application. And then last thing I want to touch on real quick is the cultural context statement, which is a little bit new this year. All applicants, regardless of discipline, will be given space in the application to address this prompt, which is there any other cultural context you want to provide for the panelists to help them better understand the work submitted in this application? Contextualizing your submitted work in terms of its relationship to cultural identity may help support your application. If it is necessary for the full reception and understanding of the work you're submitting, you're encouraged to share a brief statement regarding your cultural background, identity, and how it's integral to your work. So this could include discussing race, ethnicity, heritage, gender, sexual orientation, disability, religion, cultural traditions, historical context, regionality, or community of origin. And just to be clear, so we're not accepting standard artist statements, but rather statements that help panelists understand the role and or relevance of cultural identity as it relates to the work that you're applying with. Just want to mention also that the inclusion of this statement is optional and is considered secondary to the work samples. In conversation with our previous panelists, they have, or actually several of them have expressed that cultural context statements are often helpful in providing a useful frame of reference for reviewing the submitted work samples. So if you feel that the addition of such a statement is not relevant to your submitted work, you're not required to include one. And artists who choose to submit a statement for the panel should be aware that their response still may not include any biographical or identifying information. And then just throwing this up there, we just went over this, but these are the acceptable topics to address in the cultural context statement if you're going to include one. And again, this is all in the instructions and also directly in the application itself. This list is there. And then again, just to be clear on what to avoid in the cultural context statement, again, this is just a list of things that have to do with biographical or identifying information. All right, so I'm gonna stop sharing this PowerPoint. And I'm going to attempt to share a different window. Okay. So obviously those are some of the sort of broad rules and instructions when it comes to the fellowships. This is the actual rules and instructions PDF. This is available on the fellowships page on Mid-Atlantic Arts website. Steph, if you want to drop a link to these in the chat, that would probably be helpful also. But just wanted to briefly show, so on the table of contents on here, you'll see pretty much all the information you could ever need about the fellowships. And you can click on whatever you need to jump to that area. And I point this out just because specifically when you decide on which category you're applying in, down here where it says application requirements by category, if you click on it, so let's say I'm looking to submit a crafts application. If I click on crafts, it takes me directly to the exact specific requirements for the crafts category, which will be slightly different from the other categories, right? So obviously choreography is very different from crafts, is very different from poetry, and so on and so forth. So these specific rules and instructions towards the end here where it breaks it down by category are super important, and we ask that you really take the time to review them before starting or before submitting your application. So just wanted to point out how to get to those. And then let's jump into, if I can get to it, a demonstration of the actual application. All right. And is everyone able to see Smart Simple, like full screen? Yeah, okay. All right. So this is the Mid-Atlantic Arts Smart Simple page where you will begin your application journey, if you will. The direct URL to this is just midatlanticarts.smartsimple.com. Again, it's also available on the website as well. So you must have a Smart Simple account and be logged in order to access the application. So if you have an existing account already, you've tried to apply in the past, but maybe you can't remember your password, all you have to do is just put your email address in here and click the Forgot Password button. A link where you can reset your password will then be sent to your email and you can go from there. Just an important note, if you've applied for an organizational grant through the Mid-Atlantic Arts Smart Simple system in the past year or so, you will probably need to create a new account as an individual. It will only show up, the New Jersey Fellowship application will only show up for individuals and not organizations logged into Smart Simple. So if you are creating a new account, you don't have one, you're starting from scratch, you just want to click this register button underneath the login. Again, you'll want to select individual artist. And then basically it's going to prompt you to put in all of your contact information here and set up the account for you. Once you complete that and submit your registration, you'll receive an email from Smart Simple prompting you to log in and set your account password. And then after you set your password, you'll be directed right back to the original login page where we started. So for demonstration purposes, I have a fake test account set up that I'm going to go ahead and log into just so we can view exactly what the application looks like. Once you have an account and you're logged in, this is what your landing page will look like. You'll see all the account options and opportunities on here. So you can update your profile information here, you can change your password here, and then it will show you available applications. If you've started already, your in progress application or your submitted application down here. So I already opened an application just for this specific tutorial. So I'm going to go ahead and go to that. You'll click open on the side. When you initially open an application or start an application, do make sure that you click save draft because that will just kind of keep it saved in your account for you. The application itself is divided into 3 tabs, which you can see here. The first is applicant information, the second is work samples, and the third is consent. You can just click on them to move back and forth between them, or you can use these arrows up top here. So on the applicant information tab, the first section of the application, nothing on this tab will be shared with panelists. So you don't have to worry about anonymity here or biographical information. They're going to ask for a lot of it on this part. But panelists will not have access to this part of the application. The very first thing that it's going to ask you to do on the applicant information tab is to select a discipline. Okay. This is super important to do because if you don't, then when you go to the work samples page, there's not going to be any option for you to upload work samples. So please make sure as soon as you get in here, you go into the list, you choose which category you're going to apply in, probably click save draft so that way when you do go to the work samples page, it's correct for whichever category you're applying it. Some of the information that you provided when registering for your Smart Simple account is going to automatically carry over to this tab. So you'll see some information pre-populated here, name, address, phone, email. So just review that information, make sure that it's all good. There's a button to edit it as well if you need to change something. That's up here where it says click here to edit your account profile information. Just a note also, wherever you see a little red asterisk next to something, that means that that field is required. So you'll have to provide information in any of those fields before the system will even allow you to submit. So if you try to submit without filling one of these in, it will show you an error message and it will tell you that you've missed something that you need to fill out. On this lower half of the page, you will provide your artist or publicity name. And this is basically just the name that you prefer to use when being publicly addressed as an artist. So if you're someone, who likes to go by a different name, publicly facing, this is where you'll want to put that, especially if you're awarded. When we, put out the list of the fellows, we'll use the name that's under publicity or artist name. You'll also be required to provide the county in which you reside. The application also asks for information about any previous New Jersey State Council on the Arts fellowships that you may have won. And if you indicate that you have received one in the past, it will ask you what year and what discipline that was in. All applicants must include a resume or biography, so you can use this space to describe your educational background, professional achievements, etc. Again, this is used for administrative purposes only, and it will not be seen by panelists, so you don't have to worry about anonymity here. A narrative bio is fine, your CV is fine, resume, whichever you're comfortable with. It is a rich text field, so you'll be able to edit and format that information right inside the application as well. Just so you know, as it says there, there's a 2,000 word limit on that field, and you can either copy and paste or type directly into this field to fill it out. And then finally, the state council collects optional demographic information that provides them with important data about the communities that they're serving. So this information is used for analytical purposes only, and again, will not be seen by panelists or otherwise inform the selection process at all. And you'll see demographic options down here. And then you'll want to always, it's kind of just a fail safe to click save draft to make sure that it's your whatever you've input is there and will stay there. When I click over to the work samples tab, since I've selected sculpture as my category, the work sample upload is going to be specific to the sculpture category. So again, that's why it's crucial that on that first tab, you pick which category you're applying in. So again, anything that's on this tab, you're going to want to make sure that there's no identifying or biographical information. As a general rule, basically anything that could be listed in your resume should be omitted from this section of the application. So as you kind of scroll down the page here, you'll see the requirements for the work sample file upload. And again, this one's specific to sculpture. It will look different for each category. Categories that collect image, audio, and video work samples will use a media library function that looks like this. Once you click the upload button, you'll see, or rather underneath the upload button, you can see the file types that are allowed here. So basic video and image files are allowed in this one. And then if you click the browse files button, you can go to your files and choose whichever ones you're going to upload. For this purpose, I'm just going to put a couple pictures of my dog just to show you how it works. And then it will say upload complete. And if you scroll down under photo library, or if you've uploaded video clips, it'll say video library. This is where they will appear. Important to note that depending on the file size, the upload speed may vary. For folks who are applying in choreography, for instance, if you have, a 5-minute long video, it may take a couple minutes for that to upload in the system. Same thing with audio files for those of you who might apply in music composition. So we ask that you just try to be patient, and then if something goes wrong, you can reach out to us and we'll try to figure out what the issue is. For sculpture and crafts and other visual categories, you'll see what we call metadata under each image. In order to edit that, you just click on this little properties button that has the pencil inside the square. And this is where you can fill in the title of your work, the medium, dimensions if it applies, the date that it was completed, and any technical information about how the piece was created can go in there as well. Oh, I guess also I'll just mention here too, if you're applying in the poetry or playwriting, screenwriting category, you'll just have a simple file upload field here, and you won't have any metadata that looks like this. It will just be a couple extra fields that pop up for you to put the title and the date of completion and a summary or synopsis. So if you're applying in poetry or playwriting, screenwriting, and you don't see metadata anywhere, don't panic. It's not supposed to be there. It's just different requirements based on the discipline. And then below the upload section is where you'll find the cultural context statement that we talked about. Again, it's optional. All of the directions for what can be included and what not to include are all listed in this box here. And then below is where you can enter it. The word limit there is 250. And then at the very bottom of the work samples tab is just an application check. So it's just 2 questions that are basically intended to help verify that you've completed all the necessary fields and that the information submitted in this tab is anonymous. So all you have to do is just select yes. And again, I would click Save Draft. And after you've uploaded your work samples and filled in all the related information, all applicants are required to provide consent. So on the 3rd tab, this is just to consent to the terms and conditions of the New Jersey State Council on the Arts Fellowships Program. So you'll just review this information here, and all you have to do is click the checkbox, which says I've read and agree to the statements listed above. Also want to point out a super helpful tool on the left-hand side here where it says notes. If you're in here and something is not working or you're having an issue with something, if you click on notes and click on the plus button, as you can see, it'll say note to Mid-Atlantic Arts, and you can type whatever your problem is in here. And if you click save on it, it will send us at Mid-Atlantic Arts an email automatically. And then the nice thing about this is I can come in to your application and just leave you a note in response. So you'll see, like, if there's 2 notes here, there will be a little 2 next to notes. And then, you know, if it's easier and a quick fix, sometimes it's better to do it that way than writing out an email or calling. Just a handy little thing there in case you run into any problems. And to get back to the main application, you just click main and then you're back in it again. So if you're all set and you've reviewed everything carefully and you're ready to submit, you can click the submit button at the bottom of the page. Now you'll see, since I missed quite a few things and didn't fill some things out, if you miss anything at the top, it will tell you the submission failed. You'll get this error box and it will usually tell you exactly what's missing. So for me, I left the resume and bio empty, and I didn't answer the strobe light trigger warning. It's just a simple yes or no question. So if that pops up, you'll want to go back in, fill out the things that are missing, and try to submit again. Once your application is submitted, you'll no longer be able to make changes. So please do review the information carefully before you click the submit button. If you're unsure of any of the eligibility requirements, please review the rules and instructions before you click submit. After you've successfully submitted your application, you'll receive a confirmation email. Sometimes, just a heads up, it goes to spam or junk, so you'll want to check for anything that says it's from the no reply at Smart Simple email. At that point, no further actions are required. It may take a couple minutes to receive that email. And yeah, so finally, I'll just say that submitting your application means that you filled in all the required information and provided the correct work sample file types. But it does not necessarily mean that you met all of the eligibility requirements. So we do review every single application for eligibility. And we, try to send out revision requests if something gets messed up or something is incorrect. But we do ask that you do your best to follow the rules and instructions before submitting. And then last thing is, just to reiterate that you do not have to finish the whole application all at once. You can fill out a portion of the application and click Save Draft and then log back in at a different time, and that information will still be there for you on your home page, which is just that landing page that you saw when we first logged in. If you scroll down here, this is where you'll be able to see your in progress application. If you just saved draft, if you click submit, it will be there. And then once notifications for awards have been sent in March, of 2025, you'll be able to see if it's under this category. All right, there's a lot of information. So I'm gonna stop there, and yeah, Steph and I are happy to answer any questions that folks may have here in real time, if it's easier to kind of talk it out. And as we start taking questions, I'm gonna also just put up our contact information just in case anybody wants to jot it down. But if anyone has questions, please feel free to jump in.
Hi. Was I supposed to raise my hand? Or
Oh, you're fine. Go ahead. Sorry.
hello, my name's Morgan. I guess my question was around the optional answering of the the cultural statement, like what our art means and what we're trying to represent. When you were talking about that, I saw that I know we can't put anything about ourselves personally in anything. It's an anonymous application process, but I also saw to not have your artist philosophy in there. Can you specify what that means exactly?
Sure. Yeah. Steph, do you want to take that one? I feel like we probably elaborate on that better.
Sure, I'll take a stab at it. So often artists are asked to create some sort of statement around who they are as an artist and how they make work, what is their approach, their methodology, or their philosophy behind art making. And sometimes, yes, that's a very big, broad, open statement. And sometimes, yes, those artist statements can relate or reflect someone's cultural identity or someone's background. And so in an effort to hone in on the thing that helps panelists the most during these processes, because we've noticed that full-on artist statements can sometimes be a conflicting, can add some conflict for the panelists in terms of looking at what they're reading and then looking at what their work samples are being offered. Sometimes they're helpful, sometimes they're not. And it's very difficult to ask a panelist to not consider the panel statement if they've seen that it is causing them an issue in evaluating what they are seeing. But we do know that sometimes a panelist is looking at something that seems to be very representative of a particular culture or a particular geography or a particular identity that would be helpful for them to know a little bit about, to contextualize what they're seeing. So while we don't want to know what your name is or how many years of experience you have, or what school you may have attended or not, or how many exhibitions you've done, we might want to know that your folk art tradition is rooted in this particular community, and that's the reason or the context for this particular art sample that they're showing. So there are parts of your identity that can make the work easier to contextualize for a panelist who's looking at many, many art samples. So it helps to contextualize the work and distinguish it as something specific. Does that help?
Yeah, so it's like instead of me saying like, oh, I do art because my family when I was little, blah, 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 you would say like, oh, this art is relatable to other Black women or Black people, and this is why, like as a whole, how it
Yes.
okay.
Yes. Yeah, so there are parts of your cultural identity that you can reveal.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And so look at the list that we've offered you and the rules and instructions to kind of help you navigate that a little bit. And if you have questions, about where you're landing with it, you can always reach out to Jackie and Steph or even me for a little assistance. Okay.
And making that brief would be probably more beneficial to the someone.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Concise, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, great question. Thank you for bringing that up. We have another one in the chat that says, if you don't receive an award for this cycle, are artists encouraged to ask for feedback on their applications afterward? So yes, absolutely. If you receive a notification that you are not being awarded, right, in that actual notification email, it will say, if you would like to request panelist feedback for your application, please send us an email. Lots of folks do. We give the option rather than just automatically sending it, because some folks do not want feedback on their application. But we do give the option, and we do have a lot of people take us up on it and ask for it. And we very literally just take the panelist comments and put them, copy and paste them into an email and send it to you. We don't say, you know, which panelist said what or anything, because, you know, as I'm sure you can imagine, that could probably get ugly if it's in the wrong hands. And we don't want people to lash out at panelists or anything like that. But yes, we're happy to provide the feedback. And I will say this past year specifically, we had a lot of folks, when they requested feedback and received it, were very, very appreciative and like thankful, and felt that it was helpful, not just for this application, but for grant applications in general. So yes, absolutely, we do offer feedback from the panelists.
We have a comment in the chat that says they love that there's feedback. It's very helpful.
Yeah, I'm glad. I found that people are very appreciative.
Yeah, yeah, and I can say that our panelists are always like really concerned about, okay, I have to figure out how to do this. Like, and I think that's probably because we really ask them to write something for every single applicant that you are reviewing. And make it as constructive as you can. Or if you can add positives and challenges to it, you know, to keep it balanced. And that is probably a very time-consuming task for them, but they all take it very seriously. So, yeah, we're glad for that.
Yeah, and I'll just also just piggyback off of that and say that before it even gets to the panelists, Steph Reyes and I, like I said, we individually check every single application for eligibility. So if we happen upon an application that, you know, has something that's missing, or let's say you accidentally included something biographical in your cultural context statement or something, that's not an automatic, like, okay, this person's ineligible, cross them out. We will reach out to you and say, hey, here's an error we found, please fix it by this date in order to be considered eligible. So I think that's a helpful thing with this particular program, because I think in a lot of cases, the eligibility review is just like, is this person eligible, yes or no? And if they're not, then they're out of the running. That's not the case for the fellowships. If we see that you have an error or something's missing, we'll reach out to you. If we don't hear back from you after 2 or 3 times, then there's nothing else we can do about it. But initially, if we find that you have something missing or a mistake, we'll reach out and ask for revisions. Other questions?
I can
Question?
offer just a quick maybe note or thought or consideration for this particular question does come up in some of our webinars, and also in terms of, you know, being in evaluation meetings with panelists and sort of wondering if, given the work samples that you can provide, depending on your discipline, what is the best representation of the work that you can provide in terms of, like, you have choices, right? You could provide something that gives, maybe you're an artist who works in a lot of different particular aesthetics or styles. So you could show sort of a range that you have or a scope of your skills or your aesthetics, a range of your work, or you could show something that is really much more honed in on a very particular exhibition or a particular theme. So think about how you could navigate what you're going to show, what choices you're going to make in terms of what you're offering the panelists to look at. As think of your application as sort of a whole piece of something. It may not show everything, but does it show the best of what you've got right now? So there's some things to consider in terms of why you're asking this group of panelists to look at this work. Just sort of think through that.
There's one other thing. Can you elaborate on what technical description would be and what is the technical process? What if the technical process itself is very simple?
Yeah, great question. So in that metadata part, if you're applying in one of the visual categories, there is a section at the end that says technical information. It's pretty much how the work was created. If it is super simple, you are welcome to put the very simple thing like photography as a category this year. And we have folks who, for technical information, if they're submitting digital photography, for instance, they may literally just put the type of camera that they used. Or they may put like the type of camera and Photoshop, like as a program that they used. So it's really up to you how detailed you want to be. You know, if you're working in crafts or sculpture and you have a really specific important process that you follow for how you create your art, like you want to tell us in depth, like, you know, you create a specific sort of clay, use these materials, and you let it harden, and then you do, you know, X, Y, and Z. You can go into that detail if it feels like significant to the work. But if it's very simple, you can keep it simple in there. It does not have to be anything crazy. It's really just a spot to be able to explain how the work is created, like what technical aspects there are involved in it.
Okay, so we have about 3 minutes left. Is there any other questions or any comments anyone wants to make? Feel free to put them in the chat or unmute and speak them into the world. No? Okay, well, we do have contact information for both Jackie and Steph, and I'm sure that they will be happy to answer any questions that come up after we close the session. But thank you to both of you for being here today and helping us to understand the application process, which if you're new to